Hello, this is the first chapter of a journal of my visit to Hollywood, California for Christmas, which impressed me very, very much. Today, I will share with you wonderful, exciting information about the beginning of silent films in Hollywood. Let me introduce you to Professor Brian S. Judd, who's the manager of the Hollywood Heritage Museum.
Welcome to what is the oldest film studio in Hollywood. The building was built as a livery stable in 1901 for a citrus farm that was all around this area right here. This aerial photograph from 1920 shows the remnants of that citrus farm. You see these orange groves are still there for the agricultural structure of Hollywood at the time. They converted the building to a film studio in 1912, and Cecil B. DeMille, here's Cecil in this photograph, rented the building to shoot what will become the first feature-length film in Hollywood. This is the Western called The Squaw Man. Cecil had formed a partnership with Jesse Lasky, who was a successful vaudeville manager, and Jesse Lasky's brother-in-law, Sam Goldfish, to create a Western film shot in authentic Western surroundings. It was very easy to find those Western surroundings in 1913. All you had to do was go over the hill right here, up the old Cahuenga Pass, because in the San Fernando Valley, there was no development. It was alfalfa fields, it was goat farms, it was chaparral, so it was easy access to the West. In 1913, the West was, Arizona had just become a state in 1912, so that's how rustic it was here. So they purchased the screen rights to a popular Broadway Western, The Squaw Man, and wanted to shoot it out here. They were also going to take advantage of 330 days of California sunshine a year, excepting today, of course, because with the primitive cameras and primitive film stock of the time, folks looked the best when they shot outside, underneath direct sunlight. That photograph up there is the 29th of December, 1913. It's the first day of the production on that film, and you see that they're shooting on an exterior stage there. The Pathé camera that they're using is a hand-cranked machine. You see that they're shooting a dinner party scene. That's in the first reel of The Squaw Man. Right. Well, you see that they're shooting on the exterior stage, they're shooting an interior scene. That cotton muslin screen above helps control the shadows and the contours on the actors' faces. That photograph up there with the Native Americans in the truck, they're headed up to the San Fernando Valley. We can't match that photograph exactly to where they are up there, although in theory you could match it. Welcome to the office of Cecil B. DeMille. Everything in this room comes either from Paramount or the DeMille estate. That photograph there shows Cecil sitting in this office. That's the only photograph we know he's sitting in this room. We think he's sitting over there by that door, which was not there at the time that they were shooting The Squaw Man. They put that door in when this was the studio gymnasium manager's office, much later. As you see everything in here, those are Cecil's hats from local haberdashers in Los Angeles. That typewriter back there is an Underwood typewriter. It's the same typewriter that his secretary, Stella Stray, used to type the script to The Squaw Man. There's those two checks there on his desk. He kept those mounted like that to remind himself that he had made a good choice to be a director rather than a writer, which had been his original intention. They're both royalty checks from the first 10 Commandments. The top is a royalty check from Grosset and Dunlap, the publisher of the novelization of that film. The bottom check is his director's fee. You'll notice that the top check is 63 cents. The bottom check is $351,000. Lucrative decision on Mr. DeMille's part.
How old was Mr. DeMille when he started this adventure?
Well, Cecil was born in 1881, so what's 1913 minus 1881? I think he was 33 or 34.
Okay. Did he have a family?
Yes, that's Constance DeMille, that's his wife there. He had several children with her. one of, the DeMille estate now is, the DeMille Trust is a charitable organization. It's run by Cecilia DeMille Presley, who's Cecil's granddaughter.
Oh.
And her son is Richard, and he helps run it too. They're on our board of advisors and help us out with important things sometimes as we help keep her grandfather's legacy alive here.
This is when he passed?
That's right. It was January 1959. During the second version of the Ten Commandments, during production of that, which was shot in part on location in Egypt, Cecil had a heart attack, which he survived, obviously, but he never quite recovered his health after that. He was in his mid-70s by that point, a robust, healthy figure, but never quite recovered after that. The second version of the Ten Commandments ended up being his last production.
Mr. Bryan, I've often seen the boots he used, and everybody saw it like a symbol of a director.
Yes.
Tell me the history of that.
Well, Cecil said that the reason he wore those, in that photograph, he had a variety of riding boots and so on. We have a set of those puttees there. That's what he's wearing there. That was a combination of laced boot and those riding leggings. He wore them because when they were shooting up in the San Fernando Valley, there's rattlesnakes up there. I mean, when he came to work initially, he rented a house and rode a horse to work to this building here, to the barn. He ended up continuing to wear those boots, partly because people identified him with them, but also because he said later on that, he's on his feet all day, 12 hours a day on a set, that that those boots were good calf support. But I think Cecil was enough of a showman that he just kind of liked the look too. Well, Hollywood Heritage as a museum has been open since 1985. We moved this building to this site in 1983. Paramount moved it off of its lot in 1979, having worked out a deal with the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce to create a film museum. That deal didn't quite go through. That's when our organization, we're a California 501c3 nonprofit, got involved. We said, we're going to restore this building, we're going to move it to a safe site, and we're going to open as a museum. It took a lot of people, a lot of effort over many years to get that accomplished, but we've been open since 1985. We're in our gift shop now. You're looking there at our double doors, our elephant doors there. At the time that they were shooting that first feature-length film in Hollywood, the lease to the building allowed the owner of the building, a fellow called Jacob Stern, to park his car in here if he wanted to. So they'd open those double doors and park Jacob Stern's car in here. He owned the first automobile in Hollywood.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my.
I don't know what kind it was. I wish I did.
How do they preserve this barn? Who preserved it before the shop was here?
The building was preserved for 52 years by Paramount itself because it was part of the lot, and Hollywood Heritage now preserves it. This is a California state landmark and a national landmark also, so we are required by those designations to live up to certain standards regarding the structural integrity and presentation of the building itself. We're limited in what we can do, but in certain respects, but most of the building itself is original.
And you sell books from different eras in Hollywood?
Yes, we try to focus on Hollywood history. Many of the authors on our books in display are, some of them are members here. In fact, we just had a Authors Day sale for the holidays last week. And we try to be not only a museum, but also an archival and knowledge resource for anyone coming into town who's interested in the silent film era and the birthplace of early Los Angeles, essentially.
Do you have talks also by the authors?
Yeah, we do. Mm-hmm. Yes, we have events. Sometimes when a new book comes out, we'll arrange for a talk. Sometimes we have actors, actresses come in, people who work in various facets of the film industry come through. It can be a lot of fun.
What are the hours, please, here to visit?
Hollywood Heritage, the museum is open Friday through Sunday, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Do we have to make an appointment?
No, we don't. No, you just walk through the door. We're happy to have you come by.
What is this desk?
Well, that vanity comes from the ladies' room at Sid Grauman's Egyptian Theater, which opened on the 18th of October, 1922. We had a show and a put this display together to celebrate the centenary of that opening. Hollywood Heritage came by these artifacts through the wife of the man who designed them for Sid Grauman, one of Sid Grauman's themed movie palaces, where he wanted the entire decor of the entire structure, including the restrooms, to reflect this Egyptian theme. And there was a big vogue for Egypt in the 20s. That's when they discovered King Tut's tomb.
Mr. Bryan, this is where we are, is that correct?
Yes, that's right. This miniature shows what our museum looked like when it was a film studio. The building there with the eaves, that's where we are at the moment. That's the original structure of the barn. That's the 1901 structure. In 1912, they built this structure on along with the exterior stage right here. Now, this is a totally self-contained film studio. The way it works is you shoot your film right there underneath that cotton muslin screen right outdoors. You take your exposed print and walk it over into this building because that's their development lab. You throw your print in the soup, you get it focused, you get it developed, you get it all focused, and you've got your dailies right there on site. A totally self-contained film operation. They struck 36 prints of the Squaw Man for distribution all through the United States, and that's all they needed in those days to build what would become the empire of Paramount.
Tell me about this.
Well, those cameras are very early cameras. That black-bodied one there, that's a Pathé camera. That's a French-manufactured camera. It's the same type of camera that Cecil used to shoot the Squaw Man, or his cameraman, rather. That was Al Gandolfi. The other cameras there that's a Williamson camera there. There's a French Prévost camera, and also what is the other one there? That's Prestwich. That's what the manufacturer is. You see how the design of the camera works. It's very simple. Some of them are not even, you can't even look through a lens to line up your shot, depending on the camera itself. But it's a very simple rig. They're all made of wood and metal. And a good camera operator in those days was rather like the drummer of a band. You had to know how to keep time, to shoot at a frame rate of about 18 frames per second. And that's also the rate at which a silent film ought to be displayed. Oftentimes, however, they're displayed at a frame rate that's like 24 frames. That's why they're looking like they're running around all the time, too fast.
Mr. Bryan, I was in the Paramount lot, and it's impressive. What is that big, gigantic pool next to it for?
Yes, that's that building has a matte painting there. The pool there is what they call on the Paramount lot B-Tank. B-Tank was excavated for the production of the second version of the Ten Commandments. They excavated B-Tank to shoot the parting of the Red Sea. Paramount still uses B-Tank. They flood it when they need water scenes and don't want to go down to San Pedro to do it. They have more control over the tricky water shots. And that's the original location of where the barn was while it was on the Paramount lot there for 52 years. That was the Western Town backlot there.
Okay, wait a minute. So the barn was originally in that site?
Yes.
And then it was moved here as a museum?
Yes.
Oh, I see. And it was there for how many years?
52.
Oh, wow. In this corner, this section.
Yes, and in fact, the barn was moved while it was on that lot at least once. We don't even know exactly how many times Paramount did that because some of those records don't exist. Most of those buildings there are still there on the Paramount lot. Of course, there's the famous Paramount Gate, which is now internal to the studio. The studio goes all the way down to Melrose Avenue. At that time, or what this miniature represents, Paramount extended only to Marathon Street. Now Marathon is internal to the Paramount lot.
Fascinating. When were these studios built? Do you know?
Well, it depends on the studio. The first studios out here in California were downtown. Then they moved to a neighborhood that they called at the time Edendale, which is now Silver Lake. But the first studio in Hollywood, we're the second one in Hollywood. The first one in Hollywood predates us by about a year, but they had a fire in the building in 1936, so now we're the oldest one standing. Those machines built the film industry. This is a mutoscope. It's essentially the principle of a flip book. You would put a nickel in that machine, and you would crank that handle there, and you would watch you'd watch a motion picture, essentially. They're kind of like TikTok or YouTube from the 1890s, from 1901, as you might say. That particular mutoscope spent many years at Disneyland, actually, before we acquired it there, Hollywood Heritage.
Photoplay.
Yes, this case tells the story of Charlie Chaplin, one of the great pioneering comedians. That costume in the case, have you ever seen Sunset Boulevard?
Yes.
Gloria Swanson wears that costume in that film when she imitates Chaplin.
What is this, Brian?
That is a simplex projector. It's it is an augmented projector. The projectionist who donated this to us added some features so that he could project sound using this projector mount. But that's a typical projector that you would find in a theater by the late 1920s. The one next to it is only about 10 years older. That is a hand-cranked Powers cameragraph using a carbon arc lamp inside. It's such a simple machine that it doesn't even have what they call a take-up reel. So the projectionist would be cranking it through, the film would come through, and they would have to put a basket underneath it to capture the film and then rewind it on the reel.
How did they reduce the size?
Yes, well,
from this big one to the smaller, compact one?
Actually, the big one is the evolution of this machine. So this one was available. I mean, they tried to market it for home projector use and things like that, but people were scared to use it. It was also expensive, but people were scared to use it because the film stock was flammable. You've got a carbide arc lamp going in there. That's not a great idea with the cats and the dogs and the kids running around in the living room. That's not gonna pass muster, as you might say. That's a 70 millimeter Mitchell Fox Grandeur camera. That camera shot, among other things, the Big Trail. John.
This one?
This is one of my favorite exhibits. It's very special. That is DF11 is the serial number. It's one of 30 cameras manufactured by the Technicolor company. That camera shot, among other things, both Gone with the Wind and The Wizard of Oz.
Oh my God. This is a treasure.
There's 3 separate film stocks in those magazines. The light comes in through that 50 millimeter lens that's mounted there. It's split by a prism into the different light spectra, red, blue, and green. The development process involves adding certain dyes, removing other dyes to create an answer print. If you were shooting in Technicolor, you hired Technicolor to do it for you. So their camera operators, all their developers, this was proprietary technology that Technicolor used. And but the result is your glorious Technicolor effect. It was the first economical, reliable, and effective color system. There had been color systems before, but this was the one that really caught on.
What year?
That camera is, I believe, 1933. There's a photograph of DF11 there on the set of Gone with the Wind. That's the burning of Atlanta sequence. There were 30 of these cameras manufactured. David Selznick, during the production of Gone with the Wind, hired every available Technicolor camera he could get his hands on to shoot it, because you only get one shot to burn Atlanta. Otherwise, you'd have to rebuild the entire set. It would cost a fortune.
These are projectors?
Yes. Thomas Edison, the film pioneer, had an interesting idea with these projectors. He thought that rather than going to theaters, people would prefer to watch films at home. So he created these kinetoscopes for home use. His distribution model was very interesting. It'll be familiar to us all. He thought that with their home projectors, people would subscribe to a service, and he would send you films in the mail that you would then return when you were through with them.
Just the way they do now.
Well, he was right. His production model was very similar to what Netflix would later do. The trouble was that the machines themselves were expensive, and people preferred actually to go to the theater to have the films be projected professionally. So, Edison was right. People do want to watch stuff at home, but only if it's very convenient to do.
We're watching?
Well, we're watching The Cameraman. Welcome to the Buster Keaton Theater, as we call it here. There's Buster standing there. I do have to say that Buster was a bit taller than that. That mannequin there was fabricated for a film museum. There was something they were doing with perspective, so they needed him to be a little bit shorter than he actually was. But you see, these projectors here were in Buster Keaton's house. Buster lived in Beverly Hills, and if you were watching a film at somebody's house in those days, you had to thread the film up and watch them yourself.
What year are we speaking about, Brian?
Oh, these simplex machines, I think they're from 1929.
And these are all projectors, Brian?
Yes, those are also home projector units for 16 millimeter film.
What year is the film that you have playing here?
The Cameraman is a Buster Keaton picture that's from 1928.
Well, we now have one of the stars of the past,
Yes.
Rudolph Valentino.
Rudolph Valentino, billed at the time as the great Latin lover. He became a superstar for tangoing in a film called Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. That propelled him to stardom. Then he became a superstar as the Sheik, which was, of course, a Paramount production. That poster there is a French poster of the film Blood and Sand. It is, the size is called a French Grand size poster, and it's very rare to find a poster in such good condition from that period.
Mr. Brian, this fellow Jesse Lasky was a partner with DeMille, you said.
Yes.
What happened with their partnership? And I see him here as the producer for Rudolph Valentino.
Yes, that's right. Jesse Lasky had been a successful vaudeville manager who partnered with DeMille to create to work in this studio, which became Paramount. He was the head of production here at Paramount until 1931, when they restructured Paramount during the Depression. So he became an independent producer after that and did a lot of good work. He did Sergeant Europe with Gary Cooper, which won Oscars. So he was active in the film industry until he passed away in 1958.
But he was not as known as DeMille.
No, he wasn't. Cecil B. DeMille was better known, partly, for a variety of reasons. DeMille, for instance, had a radio show throughout most of the 30s. They did radio adaptations of big pictures. So he did, Cecil B. DeMille introduced and did outros to those radio shows in the Lux Radio Theater, they were called.
This team was loved by everyone.
Oh, yes. What do you call them in Spanish?
El flaco y el gordo. El gordo y el flaco.
Yeah.
El gordo y el flaco.
Yep.
That's right. I remember.
Yep.
Laurel and Hardy.
Laurel and Hardy, that's right.
They didn't mean to work together, but it happened.
Had separate acts, and I think they got together at Hal Roach's studio.
Tell me about this.
Yeah, Jackie Coogan became famous from his role as the Kid in Charlie Chaplin's picture, The Kid. That propelled him to stardom. His career lasted all the way into television, of course. Jackie Coogan was Uncle Fester in the Addams Family.
Yes. And this is silent players you have.
Yes, all these capsule biographies help us tell the story of these actors, and they were the first people, they were the first generation to achieve stardom at an international level in the arts. Nobody had, they were the first mass-produced mass media stars. We're used to it today. I mean, we've got TikTok and Instagram stars, simple things on your phone. These were the first generation of people to have achieved recognition at that global level. People knew who Charlie Chaplin was all the way up in Timbuktu, so to speak.
And these were the silent players.
Yes, that's right. Some of their careers lasted all the way into the sound era, others did not. Right here.
And now we have...
Yes, those big Klieg lights are early studio lamps. Early studio lighting was hot stuff. You had to be wearing your electrical gloves to be operating those.
Very dangerous.
Yes, quite so. Now this case helps us tell the Lasky story. Jesse Lasky Sr. was Cecil's partner. Jesse Lasky Jr., his son, ended up being a writer. He was a gifted writer. He wrote a few novels, wrote books of poetry. He also has a number of screen credits for Cecil B. DeMille productions. Interestingly enough, that you see the cornet in there. Jesse Lasky's, before he got into film and vaudeville management, he was a musician. He played the cornet. He had an act with his sister, the musical Laskys, and it was interesting that his sister decided to marry Sam Goldfish because he was a glove salesman. She wanted to get out of, there's a bust of Jesse Lasky donated to us by his daughter Betty, who passed away sadly a few years ago in 2017, I think it was, but Betty would come to events. She was a living link to the Lasky family.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for visiting. We look forward to everybody out there in New York and all around the world to come visit us here at the Hollywood Heritage Museum. We're open from Friday through Sunday, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. You can visit us online at our website. It's www.hollywoodheritage.org. Give us a call, check in. Our telephone number, we got to check it again. I often forget it myself. We're 323-874-2276.
Again, the website, please?
Yes, that's www.hollywoodheritage.org.
Thank you.
Thanks for visiting.
This museum is known as The Barn. Thank you for visiting.